Welcome back. It's been a minute since we've made a video here on the channel. Quite a bit's happened. I want to get back to our reloading segment, which I have a really interesting addition to our reloading program for competition. Is I am now focusing on making precision gas gun ammunition right now, and then move that into making precision bolt gun ammunition on progressive. But most recently, I just went and shot my first Quantified performance match. And if you're not aware what a Quantified performance match is, it is really just an accurized gas gun match. So you're shooting under time constraints and for accuracy. With other shooting type disciplines, time doesn't necessarily play into it. So you have a par time of say 180 seconds, and it doesn't matter if you finish in 60 seconds, 90 seconds, or 179, it's just points. But with Quantified performance, it's time plus points. So how fast you shoot directly dictates your score, which I kind of like more. In this match, we shot out at Element Training Center out in Holt, Florida. Impact Sports hosted the match for Quantified Performance with Travis Dice. This is my second match. No, I'm sorry, this is my third match with him, and he does a really good job match directing and putting on, setting up and putting on a good match. I ended up shooting in the general purpose division. So there's three divisions: the general purpose, the practical performance, and then open. I think I'm saying that right. If not, I'll fix it below. In the general purpose, there are some constraints that you have. You can't go over a 16-inch barrel, and your magnification can't go over 10. So the rifle that I was using for tactical games was an 18-inch barrel, so I couldn't use that for the Quantified performance match. So what I did is I had a brand new Sons of Liberty broadsword that I have been wanting to use for Quantified performance, and I finally got a chance to break it out for it. All I did was I just took my NX8 off of my Tactical Games rifle, and with the Badger Ordnance Condition 1 mount, it makes it really easy. You just loosen the bolts, put it back on, and torque it down to specifications. So some differences that I got to use this time versus what you don't get to use in the tactical games is, as you probably can tell, I used a muzzle brake. So that's an Area 4119 Hellfire match. And then I had my Atlas bipod as well. And whereas you can't use any kind of stabilizing equipment in the tactical games, you are actually, you really need it for Quantified performance. So I also had my Armageddon medium bag that I was using as a rear support bag. Now, you can tell that it's an OD green upper, and this is actually the lower that's on my tactical games because I wanted to use the Trigger Tech trigger that was in this one versus the trigger that came with the broadsword. The one that came with the broadsword was a LaRue MBT trigger, and it was a little bit heavier than I wanted to compete with. I could have definitely done it, but it's not what I wanted. So I just popped this lower on this one, and I had ordered another Trigger Tech trigger. It just didn't get in time. This was really a really quick turnover trying to get this set up and go. So I had 2 days to really come up with a load development for this rifle for the Quantified performance match. Luckily, I found one that worked really well using stable match from Hodgdon Powder and Sierra 77 grain Sierra Match Kings. I was able to make it work on my Dillon 550, and I was able to crank out my match ammunition in no time at all. If you've been following in my Instagram stories, it was just under 14 minutes that I was able to make 140-ish rounds. So really happy with that. That sped my process up infinitely. So like I've been talking off and on with Taylor Olerhausen, and he puts it better than I've heard anyone else. He's like, we reload to shoot, we don't shoot to reload, and we want to be able to reload quick enough to where we can come home, load a bunch of rounds for a match or for practice, and it's not prohibitive, so we don't go out and shoot more. The idea is to go out and shoot as much and as often as we can. And I am closer to that now than I have been in a very long time. As long as my powder doesn't run out, my primers don't run out, my projectiles don't run out. Because now I'm getting my time back. So, back to the match. I only shot about 100 rounds on this barrel before I went to the match. So those of you who understand what it takes to, and I'm going to use the term break in a barrel. Some people believe in it, some people don't. Really what some people can all agree on is that your barrel is going to speed up in that first 200 to 220-ish rounds. Regardless, throughout the whole match, my speed kept changing throughout it, but I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know how bad it was going to happen, and it wasn't terrible, but I think I had like a 60 foot per second swing from the beginning of the match to the end, which, not ideal. I was able to get 5th in my division. I didn't shoot as great as I wanted. Obviously, I was having a little bit of issues. That's really on me. That's not on the equipment, and that's not on anything else. It was 100% on me. So I'm excited now that the barrel is more or less broke in, for lack of a better term. I am going to give it a good cleaning, and now I'm going to start really dialing it in and getting it ready for some future matches. I may or may not use this rifle for tactical games, but we'll see. So, my first Quantified performance match. We had 8 stages, I believe, and the first stage we had, I was in squad 5. I was fortunate enough to be able to get squatted with Kurt Fennell, a competitor from the tactical games. Also, I was able to get squatted with John Hatcher of Sun and Shadow, and he is a phenomenal shooter. He shoots a lot of Quantified performance. In fact, he's the reason why I found out about it, and I've been wanting to shoot one for quite some time. So I was very fortunate to be able to squad with him in this match. Learned a lot from him. He got first in our division. We both shot in general purpose. Phenomenal shooter. Great. And also, he has a lot of really useful and great products if you're trying to get into gas gun and accurized or just performance-based shooting sports. So he has ways to get your data on a big arm data band. It goes on your forearm. He makes products that you can put dope charts on your buffer tube. Makes a bunch of different products. I really am looking to get his M-Lock thumb shelf, because I knew after this match I realized that could be super helpful. Anyways, he makes a lot of great products. Definitely go check out Sun and Shadow products. Great shooter, great asset to the shooting community, and he makes great products. So definitely go support him. Our first stage was the longest of them all. So we started on the 800-yard bay, and seems like I always have a little bit of issues on my first stage. I parred out. I was having issues with velocity, and even when I checked in, I got my initial 0. It had changed from Louisiana to Florida. I was shooting, 7 to 8 tenths high of a mil. So I brought it down, and then throughout the whole match, I just kept going higher and higher and higher. And it was really, really cold. It was in the 40s, so obviously, you know, that sped up my MO2. Again, it was on me. It was a learning process, and I learned a lot. It had 2 targets. Both were 18 by 24 pieces of steel. One was at 656 yards, and the other one was at 805 yards. And you had 3 positions you had to shoot from. You were shooting near to far from each position, so you had a total of 6 hits if you shot it clean, which I did not. So that was our first stage. So we ended up going the furthest distance on the first one, which I wasn't mad at. The wind was pretty calm the whole match. I think we had somewhere between a 5 and 10 mile an hour wind at the most. It really wasn't super windy. The temperature was between 39 and I think at the highest it got to 51. So after that, we had what I learned was at every Quantified performance match, they have what they call an MRQ, or a mid-range qualifier. So on this mid-range qualifier, you had 6 targets, and the first 2 targets on every mid-range qualifier are going to be 2 circles at around 100 yards. This one was 120 yards, and they were 12-inch pieces of steel that were circles. You have to start off rifle in hand, mag inserted, bolt to the rear, and bipods. You could have a bipod on it, but the legs had to be in the up position. So the first 2 shots are you're going to do standing unsupported, 1 round on each of the 12-inch circles, and then you're going to transition to a ladder, and you chose which rung you wanted to be on the ladder, and on it you would engage targets 3, 4, and 5, and that was a 66% IPSC at 336 yards for target 3. Again, a 66 IPSC at 279 for target 4, and then a 66 IPSC at 320 yards for target 5. So when you got on the ladder, you engaged targets 3, 4, 5, and then back to 4 and 3. You got out of the ladder and you drop down to prone to engage a full-size IPSC at 607 yards, and that's when you would deploy your bipods, and I was using a rear bag as support. And so that's basically like your classifier, I guess you could say it. I guess that's in the terms of, say, like USPSA or things along those lines, where it's like everyone does the same stage across, like you do it at every event, and it's just a mid-range qualifier. Our next stage, which would have been stage 1, we had to shoot. We had 2 targets: a 10-inch circle at 100 yards and a 15-inch circle at 405 yards. And you would, on the buzzer, you would move to the first position, engage the targets near to far. Shooter would then repeat the target engagements at positions 2, 3, and 4. So you had 4 shooting positions, and with 2 targets at each position, you had a total of 8 shots, 8 rounds for a clean run. Next, we went to the stage 2, which is windows and table, and we had 3 targets at 3 different positions, and it was a 66 IPSC at 305, 66 IPSC at 501, and a full-size IPSC at 586. This one was on the audible beep. Shooter will move to the first position, engage targets left or right. Shooter will then repeat the target engagement at positions 2 and 3. And the shooter could shoot the positions in any order. So again, a total of 9 hits possible for a clean run. The next one was on the rooftop. This was an interesting one. I hadn't shot a stage like this yet. For 5 targets, and you had an interesting way that you shot the engagement. So you had a really wide engagement. So you had a square piece of steel off to the left, and then you had to rotate to right in front of you, and you had a berm that had 4 different shapes. Basically your deck of card shapes. So your heart, spade, diamond, and club. And the way you shot it was you started on the square off to the side, and then you would hit the targets from left to right, and then you'd work your way back down. So you went square, club, square, heart, square, diamond, square, the next target, and then you worked your way back down, and then finally you stopped with the square plate. So that was kind of like your stop plate. So you hit 15 rounds total for a clean run. This one was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this one because it was fast and there was a lot of movement back and forth. Most of the other stages were all kind of static. You would move from one position to the next, but this one, I mean, we were set up on the rooftop in one position, but we were having to turn, and you had to reacquire pretty quickly. So it was a lot of fun. The targets weren't too far. The square was 215 yards. It was a 16-inch square, and then the club, heart, spade, and diamond were all 138 yards. So really close. You really got to go as fast as you wanted on that if you could keep up with your wobble zone. The next one was up on a Connex, and you had 3 targets, a 16-inch square at 258, 343, and 504 yards. And you were engaging them near to far. And you had 3 different positions, so you had a total of 9 hits if you shot it clean. You were on top of a Connex, and so you were from a slightly elevated position. So that was interesting. Not tall enough. You weren't high enough where you actually had to worry about like cosine, and you had to worry about different distances. So distance to target. So if you're tall enough, your angle will change the line of sight, right? So, line of sight's a little bit different because of gravity, and so you have to do math, and you will find out that it's actually a shorter distance than you think it is. Different. Moving on, we went to the rights. We had the tire stage, and where it was 2 targets, but it was a 12-inch circle at 287 yards, a 15-inch circle at 547 yards. And on this one, you move to the first position, engage the targets in order: target 1, target 2, target 3, and then you went to 3 different positions, and so you had a total of 9 rounds. This one, was probably one of the worst ones that I had. I just kept going high. The other thing about it was that we were in Florida, and the berms were all made out of that red Florida clay dirt, if you've ever been around there. And a huge rainstorm had just come through, so everything was super waterlogged. And when that material, that dirt mud, gets super wet, you cannot see any feedback on splash when you are shooting. So I had no way of telling where my impacts were going. So I was using a 1:8 scope and in my division, and so I didn't have enough magnification to actually see where impacts were going. So that was my biggest problem, and so I definitely suffered on this one. But it was learning, and it's on me again. So it was a fun stage. I enjoyed it. All the stage designs were good. I really enjoyed them. I just wish I could have been able to shoot a little bit better. Moving on from there, we went on to stage 6, which was like the right side of the Connex. And so you had 3 targets. All were 14-inch diamonds. And the first one was at 287, 156, and then 199. And this one, you engage the targets left to right, and at 4 different positions, so a total of 12 rounds for a clean run. that's a brief rundown of kind of the stages that we shot. I didn't get all of the stages filmed, so some of them you might have to go through and you could see, you can go back and watch like John's with Sun and Shadow, and I think there's a few other people that might have probably post about the different stages, and you might be able to see a full stage design. I had actually bought a trigger cam to try and record the footage, but if anybody out here uses a trigger cam and has a Night Force NX8, they don't work. So if anyone from trigger cams watching this, please start making a insert for an NX8, because that would be great. I didn't mean to rhyme there, but yeah, that was kind of frustrating. I just bought one of those strictly for documenting these kind of matches, and it doesn't work. So I'm either going to have to come up with a custom insert, or I might start looking at getting a different optic. So we'll see. But I really enjoyed this match. If you ever have a chance to go and shoot a Quantified performance match, or really any kind of accurized gas gun match, a DMR match, definitely go take the chance and go out there and shoot it. They're a ton of fun. This is my second DMR style match. First Quantified performance, but I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. I'm looking forward to doing some more. I gotta see how that's gonna work with my schedule. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments or hit me up in Instagram. But stay tuned. We're coming back with the reloading series, and I'm excited to start moving forward on this new project of the Progressive Precision Project, the Triple P. I just made that up. Anyway, so thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Make sure to like and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the range. All right.